first, be careful what you ask for, because you may just get it. And the second being, there are no accidents. Everything happened for a reason. There are no coincidences. Chair, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. It was Father's Day. I spent the day with my dad at lunch. We had a great brunch. We went to church. Then we went back to his house. He offered me a drink, which I opted to take home with me since my kids were spending Father's Day with their dad. And I would have a few, hours on my own. I was looking forward to that. It was a really long, silent drive on the way home that day, I remember, because I was not used to going home to an empty house that was so full of life, and now it was really quiet. So on the way home, the closer we got to the house, the more I dreaded getting to that house. I was not eager to get there at all. Now, halfway to the house, the clouds started coming in, got to the building. As we approached the building, there was a sudden storm out of nowhere. There, thunder, lightning, wind, and I ran out of the car straight into a full elevator. Consider this. Leading up to this particular day, the past few months had been the most grueling time of my life. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. Just when I thought nothing else could go wrong, it did. Or couldn't get any worse, it did. So I was running into this elevator. Now, my children, who I love dearly, were the only ones in my life at this point. But I thought of so many ways to get around them, to find a way to escape what was happening to them. I thought of ways to escape what was happening. I had an amazing life until that point. I owned properties, I owned a car, a nice house, money in the bank, and at this particular point, I had nothing. I was completely bankrupt and in debt, but I still had my beautiful girls. Now, the pain, until this point, I couldn't fathom because I'd never experienced any kind of emotion this intense before in my life. No kind of pain, everything was easy up until this point. It was fun, I traveled the world, anything I wanted, I got. Now, I got into the elevator. I lived on the 23rd floor. And I was in a daze as the door kept opening and closing. We got to the 22nd floor, and myself and my next door neighbor were the only ones left in the elevator at the time. I remember the door closing. The elevator started moving. 22 lit up. There was a sudden jolt. It stopped. Lights went off. We're not moving. I could hear the wind blowing outside because we're so close to the top, and the elevator was moving on the cables. My next door neighbor says to me, I have, tried a button, emergency button, you can't find anything. Okay, reached it. And my phone happened to work, hers didn't. So I called 911, they came right away, which was helpful. I tried my phone again and reached my dad and I said, can you turn around? Because we're stuck in the elevator. He just turned around and waited downstairs while the emergency people worked on this elevator. We were in this elevator for about 40 minutes, but it felt like hours because we had no idea what was happening. I hate closed spaces to begin with. Now, we ended up speaking to each other, which was really interesting because we were the only ones in the world at that moment. And she told me some things. She was going through so many things, which were maybe twice as bad as I was in, but I had no idea because I was dealing with my problems. So we became really close. We shared a lot of our experiences. We cried together. We held on to each other. While we were speaking, we heard the emergency people. They kept us calm. They said, don't worry, we'll get you out soon. She said a few things to me while being in that elevator. She said, I hear everything that goes on in the house. I know it. She says, don't worry, you'll be okay. It's time for you to move on. You can pick up the pieces, you can get going. Don't worry about what's happening. I was stunned, but I was happy at the same time that somebody else knew what I was dealing with. So finally we got out and we said, thank you, we gave thanks, we went to apartments. On my way to my door, I turned my key. I go to the hallway. So I looked up, I saw the number, I said, okay, I'm at the right door. I turned it again, it finally opened slowly. What happened? I felt the wind coming through and under the door like a wind tunnel. I thought to myself, I did lock all the windows. As I opened the door, I was faced with the most surreal scene ever. I had a huge wall of glass, window facing south, completely broken. All the glass on the floor was a mess. And my favorite couch, where I was going to read, with my drink that my dad gave me, and curl up, there were shards of glass stuck into the fabric of this couch. Everything was wet. And I thought, wow, could I have been praying for the wrong things? I prayed for a way out. I looked for a way out. I thought nobody was listening. There was no one hearing me. I felt so alone. But yet, I think I was faced with a realization that there was someone listening. There was someone waiting and watching out for us. And in my mind's eye, I could see myself cuddling on that couch with my book. I also heard my grandmother say, be careful when you ask for it, because you may just get it. And right away, I called my dad again, and I said, you gotta turn around, you have to see the scene. I went next to him, and I called my next door neighbor, and I said, you have to come and see this. This is unbelievable. We were stuck in the elevator for 40 minutes. During that time, all of this happened, and it would have taken me about that time to take a shower and get ready. That night, I cuddled with my kids, I cried, I gave thanks. And I realize now that I no longer believe in coincidences. I believe everything happens for a reason. And I think, I really believe if I wasn't stuck in that elevator, I wouldn't be here today. So, Jeff,